Lexington, Kentucky, the heart of horse country. One of the most beautiful areas you can see and home of one of horse racing's most popular venues. Keeneland Racetrack is the home of two of America's most prestigious meets. Open for racing during the months of April and October, Keeneland provides high-quality entertainment and scenic views that make horse racing, and sports fans in general, flock from all over to see. Today, I'll take you on a look around the iconic venue that has been the centerpiece of the horse capital since 1936. There are several different ways you can enter into Keeneland, but I always find driving on Rice Road to be the easiest and the most exciting. You get to drive past some of the barns and the training track. Keeneland is off on its own, no city life surrounding it like at other racetracks, which allows for all the greenery you see before even entering the facility. Typically, I like to park by the track kitchen and go inside for lunch before heading to the track. If you're a major horse racing fan, I recommend visiting the track kitchen. It is accessible to the public, which is not usual for most racetracks, but is filled with a lot of the horsemen that work or are visiting the track. Not to mention all the photos of champions that have raced at Keeneland on the walls. You will definitely enjoy stopping here if you're a big fan. And by being at the track kitchen, it gives you the opportunity to then walk to the track through part of the barn area. Stop and see some of the horses sticking their heads out, but don't be surprised if you get stopped by the best traffic of them all, horse crossings. You'll then proceed to the north entrance, which actually will cross the path the horses use to enter the paddock. If you park in the main lots, you would come in towards the east entrance, walking past the sales pavilion along the way. The first thing you'll see as you enter the main entrance would be the Keeneland shop to your left and stand selling programs to your right. Depending which entrance you come in, the walking ring or the paddock will always be your first stop. We'll take a look at the walking ring first. The walking ring is where the horses will come after their jockeys have been legged up on their way out to the track. This spot is usually packed with people wanting to see the horses up close. The jockey's locker room is also on the back side of the walking ring, making for a great spot to hang out if you want to see the jockeys up close, or maybe get a picture. But let's keep walking. You'll see a couple more shops towards the left, including a hat shop. But as you can see, the main thing to worry about with Keeneland is always the crowd size. Keeneland is always busy, and in my opinion, the facility's too small to handle the crowds that it gets, especially on its biggest days. So if you've never been here before, just prepare to be in lines and squeezing through the general admission crowds if you don't have an actual seat. We are approaching the tunnel where the horses exit the walking ring and enter the track. This is another busy spot where people gather to watch the horses. They will close off the walkway as horses come through so you can stop to watch them, but just be warned, don't get stuck on the wrong side of it or traffic will often bottleneck here. As you keep walking, you'll be able to admire the beauty of Keeneland. All the old stonework of the Grandstand, the trees inside the paddock that help make a nice beautiful color during the fall. You can really take in the beauty as you're walking through this area. And on the side here, you will find lawn jockeys painted in the silks and bearing the names of all the horses who have won Keeneland's Grade 1 races over the past year. But now we've made it to the paddock area. The stalls are on the far end, while the middle piece between them and the walking ring will be where the horses meet up with their riders. This is typically the section most people will gather in to see the horses. They'll make one lap around without the rider and one lap with the rider, so everybody can get a great view, get to see the horses up close. Since the stalls are on the far end, the horses will walk laps in front of the stalls before entering to be saddled. They will remain down in this section until called upon to enter the middle section as race time draws near. Hanging down here will give you the most amount of time seeing the horses than the other two sections will. You can either watch from right on the rail or you can kind of get up on one of the staircases in order to get a little bit of a better vantage point over the people that are up close. But overall, the paddock is a nice wide open area for the horses to walk in with a lot of viewing space along the side for people to be able to see the horses. Going just behind the paddock is where you can find the food trucks and the north entrance that we saw earlier in the video, so this is where you'd be entering from on this side from there. And also, if you go up towards the fence line, you can see the horses walking their way into the paddock. Now that we've seen what's behind the building, let's make our way inside. The ground floor is filled with concessions, bars, wagering windows, and everything like that you need throughout your day at Keeneland. Now, once again, though, with these busy crowds, sometimes it can get pretty tight to move around in this area. And so make sure if you're planning to get food and don't want to miss any of the races, you get there early on in the day, because if you're waiting in line for food later on, you might be stuck there for a while. As you get towards the middle of the first floor, near where the racetrack is, you're going to find Wagering Central, where there are a bunch of betologists there to help you figure out how to wager if this is your first time ever doing that before, or maybe just giving you tips on who to bet on, as well as another version of the gift shop right up front and center. As you make your way up towards the front of the building, you are going to find the Apron, where you can stand to watch the races. As you can see, this fills up quite a bit. A lot of people will bring their own lawn chairs kind of set up in a certain spot for the day, so if that interests you, make sure you do that. But this will be where you're watching from if you have general admission. Well, we have finally made it to the track itself, and as you can see, you are right up on it. Being right on the fence is fantastic for a great view of racing. You can be right up next to the start for your two-turn races. And right there in the stretch as they're getting close to the wire.
Desperately tries to find an opening. Bayou Spirit finds it 16th pole and is gone. Bayou Spirit, Declan Cannon is the winner. Running score second, high-ranked party was third and Valley Alvarado was fourth.
But be aware, Keeneland does have two finish lines. They do have a finish line at the 16th pole for their 1 mile or their 1 16th mile races, while all other races will finish at the finish line itself. Whether you're standing here for the race itself, or you're here to watch the post-parade or the horses come back after the race, you are right up next to them, making for some great views and some great pictures. But even if you're a little further back, don't worry. Even with those larger crowds, you can still enjoy the races pretty well and see the horses on their way to the track. Then you can stand by and watch as the horse enters into the winner's circle. Most races will use the winner's circle right in the apron. But for the graded stakes races, they will have their winner's circle presentation on the turf course across from the racetrack. But let's take the escalator and head on upstairs. As you get to the second floor, you usually will emerge into one of the bar areas. I always like looking at these old photos of Keeneland along the way. They provide some nice decoration showcasing the history of the racetrack. As you enter into the main area, this is where you're going to find a lot of your concessions and your wagering windows for the people on the second floor, as well as a lot of tables for you to sit down at. But just be warned, a lot of people usually try to get these tables right at the start of the day and then keep them for the whole day. So it is pretty hard to find yourself somewhere to sit on this floor if you don't already have a table from right at the beginning. You walk over towards the back of the room and you can go out onto a little balcony that overlooks the paddock area so you can see the horses without leaving this floor. And then eventually you can make your way outside to actually see the racetrack. In the front half of this section, you're going to find the private boxes, where you might find the owners, trainers, owners of the breeding farms, and other special people sitting here. And then you also will have just regular grandstand seating if you wanted to buy a ticket that has an actual seat with it. But if you stand in this little middle section, this actually is a general public section. So this is where I always come up to film the races that you watch on my channel. Because as you know by watching a lot of my track profiles, if you've watched them before, I always prefer being up. And so this is my best bet. Don't have to pay for an actual seat, just get the general admission, and you can stand right here on this railing watching from up above. But again, just like everywhere else, be aware it fills up pretty quickly on these spots, and so you might find yourself behind people. So make sure you get here nice and early before the race if you're planning to watch a race from up here. But one of the biggest issues with Keeneland is where they built the grandstand is the sun is setting right in your eyes as you're getting to the afternoon races, especially in the fall meet. So prepare to be blinded as you're watching the races at certain points. Now they do give a lot of the people in the private boxes the parasols umbrellas, so that way they can block the sun, but if you're standing behind that does not give you the best of views. They often get in the way. Not to mention, whatever happened to the rule, don't bring umbrellas near the racehorses. You know, as a horse sees those waving off in the distance, that's something they could easily get spooked at. So I'm not sure why Keeneland thinks this is a good idea to be able to give out these umbrellas, and I wish the people that built the grandstand back in the day had accounted for the sun. But this is one of my major issues with the racetrack. Behind the grandstand on the second floor is this little area where you can look out and see the paddock or head down the stairs so that way you can get a little closer to the horses. You could often use this as a shortcut between the two areas so that way you don't have to worry about going inside the building in order to make your way upstairs. And finally, we will look at the third floor, which is set up pretty similar to the second floor. You're going to have your wagering windows, a couple of concessions. You have the bluegrass room off towards the side, which is kind of a nicer dining room type section. You can see the racetrack pretty well up here. And you have great views overlooking the paddock from up here as well. You have the nacho bar up here on the third floor as well, which I highly recommend. It's really good, however, it is a lot, so just be warned of that ahead of time. You definitely get your money's worth from the nachos upstairs. But that does bring us to the end of our walkthrough of Keeneland Racetrack, and don't worry, this is all about to change here pretty soon. Keeneland did just announce they're doing some major renovations to kind of add in some more options of paddock viewing and all sorts of stuff like that. So we might have to come back and revisit this profile in a few years, because that'll be happening over the next few years. Hopefully this gave you a little insight to Keeneland. If you've been there before, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you have never been to Keeneland, let me know what you thought of the track and what you want to see more of from the track in the future. But I hope you enjoyed watching the track profile of Keeneland, and I hope you have enjoyed watching track profiles at other racetracks that I've done as well. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please let me know in the comments below, what you thought of this video, and I will see you for the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the races.